So is the Canon RP good enough for landscape photography? And it's a fair question really, because you've got a camera here that doesn't have much in the way of dynamic range. It's just over 11 stops of dynamic range, which by today's standards is really, really low. We're talking 5D Mark 1, 5D Mark 2 kind of territory for the dynamic range. However, it is always the case that if you're using the right techniques and you know what you're doing with the camera, you can pretty much make most situations work. And the Canon RP is just no exception to that. This is a really nice camera, it's really easy to use, and having the tilt screen with its very good clarity very much helps us to get the job done when it comes to landscapes. Now, not everyone uses tripods all the time, and I certainly don't use them all the time. But in low light situation, which was going to be for this particular picture, I'm definitely going to be using a tripod for it, which allows us to shoot at a low ISO, such as ISO 100, and that helps us maximize the dynamic range that we're getting. We can always bracket if we think that we're going to need more dynamic range than the camera has already within it. And one good way to tell us to look at our histogram when we're framing up the scene. I use the neutral picture profile on the Canon RP, and I turn the contrast down to the lowest setting possible, because at least the preview and the histogram that I see on the screen on the back is going to be the best representation that I can get from the camera as to what the dynamic range of the scene actually is. I'll look at that histogram. If it's kind of just touching the edges, it's probably going to be okay for one shot. But if we're going off the scale on the highlights or the dark areas, then I'm going to take more than one picture for it, and I'll bracket maybe 2 or 3 shots, 2 to 3 stops apart depending on what I've got. But at the same time, obviously a camera with a higher dynamic range is going to be of benefit to you. This video that you're going to see in a moment was filmed in the Assynt region of Scotland at the Calescu Bridge. This is a pretty remote area, but this is a really nice bridge because it's quite short, but it's beautiful. I think with bridges, it's important to know that it's about how it fits into the landscape and the design of it that matters. It's not about just finding the biggest bridge. Just like the same thing with mountains, it's not the biggest mountain, it's which looks the best. That's what you're after, what looks stunning. And I really like the way that this bridge fits into the scenery. So we'll run this video now and you can see me taking this photograph. Right, so this shot, I am now on the tripod. We've lost the light, there's not much left, but you have to remember the quality of lighting here is beautiful. The quantity is very low. 2 different things, yeah? Quantity of light, lots of light, like middle of the day, isn't necessarily good quality light. So you can have not a lot of very good quality light. That's what we've got right now. And because to get an exposure that was acceptable, I was going up to ISO 1600. At that point, I'm starting to think, right, I should probably now put the camera onto the tripod. So that's what I'm doing. So we're going to take these shots from above on the tripod. But I think this shot from above really shows off because we've got interest down this side. We've got that mountain peak over there. And we've got this kind of, we can see the land that the bridge is joining onto better. And I just think that sweep of the bridge, the fact that it curves, makes the shot. It's just a very pretty bridge. So we're going to get on with the business of taking this photo now. So if you look at the back of my camera, you can see where I'm focusing. It's about 1/3 of the way into the shot. Now the reason I'm doing that is focusing 1/3 into the shot is because that's going to give us the greatest depth of field. What we focus on, we get our depth of field 2/3 behind that point and 1/3 towards us. I want to make sure for this photo that I'm at f8. I'm going to be at ISO 100 because now I'm on the tripod, I might as well go with that. And so my shutter speed that I'm getting is now 2 seconds. So in order to do that, I'm going to have to put the camera onto a 2-second timer because I don't want to get any shake in the shots. So let's go ahead and do that. I edited this picture with my landscape photography presets. And in this instance, it was a very easy edit. What I love about this picture is the way that the light just seems to tumble across the landscape, nice and low, catching on different features and the side of the bridge here. I timed this picture for this moment when the sun was at this angle and really low down, because I knew that it would show the bridge off at its best by catching it from the side. One of the things that people don't realise with landscapes is how much planning can go into things. Sometimes it can be quite opportunistic where you find things, but at other times you can be saying, right, I'm going to be in this area and the sun's going to rise over in this direction and set over in this direction. And having that better planning gives you more chances to find things, even when you're being opportunistic. When you go to an area, just having a rough idea of where things are going to be will help you get better results. But this super low angle of the sun makes the scene quite low contrast, and that means that the dynamic range of the camera was easily able to cope with just one exposure. And I thought that the Canon 17-40 f4 performed really well in this case. It's a lens that's got very good sharpness across the center region of the frame, but the lens falls down in corner sharpness, and I don't really mind too much. I just think that the corners of a picture just aren't so important for me to worry about that. That doesn't mean that you shouldn't go out and buy like a 16-35 or anything else. If you want to, go ahead and do that. And in fact, I might just upgrade to that at some point soon myself anyway. This picture is all about how the bridge fits into the landscape. It's very common that landscape photographers get a little bit too close to their subjects. A good example of this is when people take pictures of lakes. They'll turn up to the side of the lake and shoot a picture from the side of the lake. So you get half the picture is water and the other half of the picture is sky. And because there's nothing there, they'll often find a tiny little rock that's sticking out of the water to put into the picture. And then that's all you've got is like sky, water and a tiny little rock. That's because they're standing at the edge of the lake. People get too close to their subjects when they're doing landscape photography. You need to be able to feature and show the thing that you're actually photographing in its environment. And you can't do that if you get too close to it. I'm going to go in more detail in future videos about things like this, about composition and so on, and explain these ideas in more detail to you. So if you want to see that kind of content, please subscribe to this channel. Overall though, I was really happy with how the camera performed. It was very easy to work with. I think it did a very good job of the picture, and I'm happy with the final results. And the 17-40 f4 lens on the adapter worked flawlessly as far as I was concerned. It works very, very well. So it's a thumbs up for me. This is a great all-round little camera that can have a good go at doing pretty much most genres of photography. It'll have a good go at it, definitely. Whilst the sensor definitely isn't the best around, and if you were thinking about going into landscape photography as your main thing, the advantage with the RP would be that it is really lightweight, but I don't think it's lightweight enough to make up for perhaps going for a higher dynamic range camera. Landscape photographers, as you'll know, will spend most of their time at lower ISO ranges, usually with a tripod at ISO 100. So you can really maximize those dynamic ranges of the other cameras that are available, and some of them might be better for you. But if you're on a budget, or you just want a more of a runaround camera that you can use for a variety of different things and get most of the features that Canon is known for, then the Canon RP I think is a really good choice for that as well. If you're interested to find out more about the Canon RP, then you should check out this video here where I give a breakdown of why I bought the camera.